All right, we're getting some breaking news. A fire has been detected on board an Indigo Airlines aircraft that landed in Kathmandu this afternoon. We believe that there were about 170 people on board that carrier. Thankfully, no casualties are being reported. These are first pictures that we're getting you of that Indigo Airlines flight that made almost an emergency landing at the Kathmandu airport. We're being told that about 170 people were on board. A fire was reported from the tires of the aircraft. The passengers were evacuated. Thankfully, no casualties. Let's get in a word from our correspondent Pankaj Upadhyay, who's joining us on the phone line. Pankaj, was this an emergency landing that took place at the Kathmandu airport? Also, are all passengers safe?
Simi, for one, the plane had landed. It was at the bay. It was after that the engineers noted smoke coming out from the brake area. And sources are telling us that it was a hydraulic leakage. What was the specific reason? Why did this smoke emit? Only the engineering department, when it submits a report, would be then we will be in a position to clearly hint at as to what has happened. The Director General of Civil Aviation, as of now, has ordered a probe. Even Indigo Airlines has ordered a probe. Within 24 hours at least, we should get the preliminary report as to what has happened. Additionally, by 9 p.m., the Indigo airline maintains that a return flight from Kathmandu to Delhi, after permission from the DGCA, would be started as well. Perhaps when the passengers coming here as well, we would get another first-hand picture. But all passengers were safe. DGCA says that it will very closely look into this matter. It was an A320 aircraft, and this happened while the aircraft was at bay. It was not an emergency landing. It was only after the plane was at bay that the engineers noticed smoke coming out from the brake area. Simi. Right,
and Pankaj, we're playing out visuals of that evacuation from that Indigo Airlines flight. I believe that this is an emergency evacuation that we're showing on our screens.
Simi, now Indigo Airlines says that the evacuation of around 170 passengers was carried out in just over a minute's time. And if that is indeed the case, we are yet to verify from the DGCA, but then if that is indeed the case, that within over a minute, if the entire evacuation of 170 passengers was carried out by the airline, then it is a fantastic effort. And the airline really needs to be appreciated for that. But then having said that, the bigger question really remains, was it a fault on the part of the engineering department that did not check the airline perfectly before it took off from the Indira Gandhi International Airport? The engineering department has to put together the report and submit it first to the airline and consequently to the DGCA within 24 hours. And as I said, within 24 hours, at least a preliminary know-how would be with us to get the viewers a better perspective of what happened at the Kathmandu airport.
All right, Pankaj, stay with us. We're also being told that we have Denzel Keeler, aviation expert, on the phone line with us. Denzel, can you take us through what exactly happened at the Kathmandu airport? We're playing out visuals of the evacuation that followed, the airline crew using the emergency exits to evacuate passengers.
Yes, I've got a different view to what you are saying. The airport in Nepal does not have a glide slope because it's obstructed by the trees, by the hills. Therefore, for pilots who are approaching to land, they have to follow a very specific, unique procedure known as step-down approach. And if you do not follow that accurately, then you'll end up at a high speed on the runway. Now, in this case, it is possible that the pilot has ended up at a higher speed, used his brakes and caused the fire. This is more likelihood than stating that there was some technical problem. They have to check up, did he follow the step-down procedure correctly? Because if he didn't, then he'll end up at high speed. And all pilots are specially briefed. There's a special lay-down procedure for landing at Nepal, at the airfield at Nepal. And the probability is that is overbraking due to high speed rather than a technical snag that you are saying.
All right, so Denzel, you basically, what you're saying is that this is probably a fault while landing, and because the topography of the place is such that the pilot needs to slow down the aircraft before landing.
You have to do a special approach. You have a glide path. Here there is no glide path. So you have to do what is known as a step-down approach. It's a very specific to that airfield, and all pilots are briefed and trained to that before they go and land at that airfield. It's, in my opinion, the evidence is showing that he has landed at high speed and overbraked.
I beg your pardon, you're saying that it's pretty clear that the pilot did not follow the procedure for landing as is required at the Kathmandu airport?
He's probably landed at a higher speed.
Okay.
How does he land at a higher speed? Because there's no glide approach. So he has to do a special approach which is specific to the Nepal airport, where you do a step down. Step by step you come down, so that if you follow that procedure, only then will you land at the correct speed. Otherwise, the speed will be high when you reach.
Right. Denzel, then probably it's just out of sheer luck that the fire was limited to only the wheels area of the aircraft and didn't spread. The pilot managed to land it, and the airline's crew managed to evacuate the passengers just in time.
Because when the brakes are overheated, the fire is confined to the brakes. And it's only when there's a fuel leak, then the fuel falls on the aircraft, on the brakes, and then there is a fire. So a fire on the brakes is overheating during landing, and whatever the emergency steps we have taken is an order.
All right, we're being joined by Denzel Keeler, aviation expert, who's taking us through the possibilities that could have led to that fire in that aircraft. These are pictures that we're playing out on our screens. A fire was detected on board an Indigo Airlines aircraft that landed in Kathmandu this afternoon with almost 170 passengers on board. Thankfully, no casualties have been reported. All the passengers were evacuated to safety. Now, this landing took place at the Tirubhavan International Airport in Kathmandu. The airport authorities have said that the wheels of the Airbus 320 operated by the budget airline caught fire while landing on this Saturday afternoon, and passengers were quickly evacuated through emergency doors. We're also being joined by our correspondent Pierre Fitter on the phone line. Pierre, any more details that you can share with us?
Well, you know, as Air Marshal Denzel Keeler was sharing over there, being someone who's had hours of experience in thousands of hours of experience in the cockpit himself, it is most likely, as he was saying, an error while landing. Because, as he said, the fire was confined to the brakes, which suggests that the brakes overheated. The brakes only really overheat, as he said, if the aircraft was way above the allowed speed limit while landing. Aircraft at all airports have to land at a particular speed, depending on altitude, depending on the approach path as well. And so, if the plane was over that speed limit, the brakes would fail, and it appears that's exactly what happened.
All right, we're also being joined by Captain Gopinath Desai. Thanks so much for speaking to Headlines today. Captain Gopinath, your first reaction?
Yeah, I think, unless an investigation is ordered, which I'm sure the DGCA will do, and also the company, you can't really comment. Though, of course, it could be a pilot error, it could be he must have had an obstacle. There could have been a dog there. There could have been a peacock. Or there could be winds. We do not know. I think we should give the benefit of doubt till the investigation is complete as to what caused this tire burst. But these are not, uncommon. I mean, these things happen sometimes. Sometimes hard landing. Sometimes sudden braking. And many times we do not know as to why the braking took place, which caused this fire. It could have been probably he saw something in front, which has happened in many runways. So, these are part of flying. I think we have to take it in our stride. But of course, the company, I'm sure, our Indian airline companies have had a good track record in safety, especially the private airlines. So, I think we should wait for that report, and I'm sure they'll take corrective steps in case they find something wrong.
All right, and Captain Gopinath, we're also being told that this was an Airbus 320 operated by Indigo. The precautions that we're talking about that need to be taken while landing at the Kathmandu airport, are they specific to this particular Airbus, or are those part of the guidelines generally that are listed out as far as landing at this particular airport is concerned, given the topography of the place?
They have restrictions of the pilot must have experience. He must have done some, landing, say, along with other pilots. He can't be he can't suddenly fly into a Bhutanese airport, for example, like in Bhutan or in Kathmandu, some of these airports have restrictions where the pilot has to do some sorties along with another experienced pilot. So, and it has nothing to do with the Airbus or Boeing. It's sometimes more to do with the nature of the airport, if they've got obstacles there in terms of mountains and things like that.
All right. Thanks so much, Captain Gopinath, for speaking to Headlines today. The story that we're tracking, a fire being detected on board an Indigo Airlines aircraft that landed in Kathmandu this afternoon with about 170 passengers on board. Thankfully, no casualties were reported and all passengers were evacuated to safety. Pankaj Upadhyay, our correspondent, is also with us tracking developments. Pankaj, any update?
Simi, Denzel Keeler was giving us a very interesting and a very important perspective. Now, the fact remains, in this time, all the coordinates, speed, altitude, are all recorded. So whether the pilot was at fault, did he overspeed, and all these coordinates would be recorded. And as Mr. Gopinath also pointed out, the report that would be submitted is very crucial. Now, DGCA, as I said, has already ordered a probe into this incident. So whether there was some engineering fault, whether the pilot was at fault, it will only the preliminary report perhaps we would have in hand by tomorrow. That will give us a clear perspective of whatever has happened. Simi.
All right, we're also being joined by Pierre Fitter, our correspondent, who's on the phone line with us. Pierre, you also heard what Captain Gopinath was saying, that probably it's too early to pass a verdict. The DGCA will be carrying out a thorough investigation. But you're telling us about the specific precautions that need to be taken while landing at an airport situated in a mountainous region.
Hello.
All right, I believe we've lost that link to Pierre. We still have with us Pankaj Upadhyay, who's with us. He in fact tracks the aviation ministry for us. Pankaj, take us through the precautions that need to be taken while landing an aircraft, especially as big as an Airbus 320 on a mountainous terrain.
Now, Simi, this incident really reminds us of the unfortunate incident that took years back in Mangalore as well, in the Air India Airlines. Now, of course, it's too premature. It's going to be very preposterous to pass a judgment right now and blame it on the pilot that he perhaps overshot the runway or that his speed was high. It is only the preliminary report, once it is out, that will give us a clearer picture. But then, yes, as aviation expert also said, if the tire had overheated, perhaps because of a higher speed than was designated, then definitely it's a factor. My sources are also telling us that the engineering section perhaps would have a complete thorough check of the aircraft before it took off from the IGI International Airport. It is going to be a little too premature to make a judgment right now. Even the DGCA says they do not really have a clear picture as to whatever has happened. They have ordered a probe. Perhaps within 24 hours, at least a preliminary report, both from the Indigo and the DGA side, should be out, and then a clear picture would be had. But definitely, this issue of overspeeding has to be taken into account when we have certain airports like the one in Mangalore, and as Denzel Keeler obviously pointed out, the one in Nepal. Special precautions really has to be taken, and these are specific guidelines under a well-mandated rule book, which are known very well by all the pilots, and as aviation experts are also maintaining that they are well trained to land such aircraft. And perhaps if there was a human error at all, obviously even those would be known, because in today's time and date, all the coordinates, as I said, of speed, altitude, the height, and all of that are all well recorded. So we will have a very clear picture within hours as to whether it was an engineering fault or whether it was a human error, whether the pilot was at fault, or was there some problem with lack of coordination perhaps between the ATCA and the pilot as well. So even that possibility has to be taken into consideration. Perhaps within 24 hours we should be in a better position to give a clear picture. Would have happened.
Absolutely. The DGCA has also ordered an inquiry. The story that we're tracking, passengers of an Indigo flight from Delhi to Kathmandu were evacuated after smoke and fire was detected from the undercarriage of the aircraft minutes after it landed at the Tirubhavan International Airport this afternoon. Pierre Fitt, our correspondent, is also with us. Pierre, I believe this airline was also expected to fly this evening from Kathmandu to Delhi. What happens to passengers who've been booked on that flight?
Simi, it's not yet clear whether the airline will provide an alternate flight to get those passengers back. But what's certain is that this plane will now be under investigation and it won't be usable, at least for the near future, while authorities try and figure out what happened. Remember, Indigo has flown across its safety chief to Kathmandu to lead the investigation into what went wrong. The Kathmandu authorities will also be conducting their own investigation, as will the Indian Civil Aviation, the DGCA, the Director General of Civil Aviation over here in India. But as Pankaj was saying, for the moment, it's very difficult to say specifically what went wrong. Air Marshal Keela had indicated that it's most likely to be the error of the pilot, or perhaps there was a miscommunication between him and the tower during the approach. But there's also every possibility that the equipment itself may have malfunctioned, either because it wasn't maintained properly or because of a structural defect. None of those can be confirmed or ruled out at the moment. As Pankaj was reporting over there, the investigations still need to be conducted on this aircraft. There will also be information taken out of the aircraft's data systems to try and verify if there's any information that can be got from there that can tell us what went wrong.
All right, Pierfit and Pankaj Upadhyay, thanks so much for bringing us up to date with what's happening at the Kathmandu airport. Passengers of flight 6E031 to Kathmandu had 175 passengers on board. We're also being told there was 1 infant and 6 crew members. All of them were evacuated to safety after a fire was detected after landing at the Tirubhavan International Airport.